right, so on to the main event. Ding, ding, ding. Today we're going to be hearing from Dr. John Cleland, our host. He earned his undergraduate degree at Michigan Technological University and his PhD at Northwestern University, both in materials sciences. He has been bringing cross-disciplinary science to a wide range of students for over 3 decades and has presented on diverse science topics. John holds 10 patents and a dozen papers in peer-reviewed journals, including the journal Nature. John and his wife have 4 sons, whom they embrace with the universe-centered, reality-based family spirituality. His social security number is 36. Oh, yeah. Sorry, kind of put all ahead of myself there. All right, so welcome to the stage, John. You'll talk about Rush and Humanism.
Welcome. All right, good morning. I'm John Cleland-Host. I'm glad to be here and glad that you guys could make it too. Just to start off, for Rush fans, how many people are Rush fans? How many? All right. How many people have never heard of Rush? Yeah, some of those. Okay, good. That's excellent. We got a nice mix. So I've been a Rush fan for a long time. I think that it's, I think maybe a good place to start would be if I go all the way back. If I go all the way back to when I was not a Rush fan. I was playing at a friend's house as a kid, and we went by his bedroom, and this was on his wall, bigger than this, 3-foot tall letters on his wall, and I was like, wow, look at that. And he's like, yeah, my older brother did that. And his older brother came in, and I said, what's that all about? And he said, you don't know Rush music? Like, right? He said, oh my gosh, you have to, and he pulls out vinyl records and he's playing this stuff, and he says, you know this stuff, here, check this one out. And he puts on Tom Sawyer, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's on the radio all the time. Awesome music. From then on, I was listening to Rush, and back then they had much fewer albums out. They've been very prolific over the years, so it's only gotten better. So, quick review for people who are not big Rush fans. Here are the band members of Rush. We have Geddy Lee, who sings vocals, and on the right, Alex Lifeson plays guitar on the left. And now, if you think about rock bands, you usually think about the lead singer maybe, or maybe the bass guitarist as being the most foremost person in the band you think of. However, on this poster, right in the middle, is the drummer, Neil Peart, who is not only the drummer, he also writes practically all the lyrics for the band. So they sing these songs, he writes incredible lyrics, and that's the topic of our talk today. So that's a little bit about Rush. Now let's take a look at Neil himself. Neil, this is his drum set. It is, you can see it's on a raised dais here, and during a concert that actually raises up and rotates around, comes out towards the audience, and it's really something else to see. I can imagine what it's like playing on this drum set while it's moving. He has to do this while it's moving, and if you look at the drum set itself, it becomes even more complicated. We'll do that in a second. From one of his interviews, he's pointed out that playing a 3-hour Rush song is like running a marathon while doing math equations. And this, in fact, I don't know how many people saw it on Facebook. After he died a few weeks ago, somebody posted on Facebook something about how funny it was to imagine across the United States all these different bands that have gigs tonight that are going to try to play an easy Rush song. So, so if we look at the drum set, here it is right here. Here's his drum set. You can see it's 360 degrees. You can just barely get in right here, and it has dozens of drums and other percussion instruments. And how many foot pedals do you see there? Anybody want to guess? 4, 7. He has 7 foot pedals. He's using both legs, both arms, and wheeling around to do this all the time while it's moving and not missing a beat, with each one coming only a tiny fraction of a second after the other one. So, how good? Well, we have, now in the age of the internet, plenty of drumming groups that will rate them. And if you look at these, he comes in number 3, number 4, number 1, top rankers, best 500 drummers of all time. Arena, 25 best drummers of all time. Number 2, AXS, most talented. Number 2, top 100, number 1. All of these different ones, if you look at the list, you'll see that right up in the top 5 is almost always the same people. It's Neil, it's John Bonham of Led Zeppelin, it's Ginger Baker, other top drummers. And the amazing thing is that as of a few weeks ago, none of them had been alive since decades ago. So for decades, Neil Peart was the best drummer alive on Earth. Wow. Now, okay, so let's think of some top rock bands. Who would you say is some of the top rock bands in history? Anybody want to call them out? A good guess? What's that? Rolling Stones. That's a good one. Good one. What's that? The Who. Yep. Led Zeppelin, maybe. Yep. Any other classic rock? Guess what? Guns N' Roses. AC/DC.
Clearwater Revival.
Excuse me?
Clearwater Revival.
Clearwater Revival, CCR, definitely. Now, if we look at this, in addition to the somewhat subjective measure of who's the best drummer, right, we can also look at some actual hard numbers. Say, which rock bands have had the most consecutive gold and platinum records in history, right? Maybe Kiss, right? Number 1, the Beatles, not a surprise, right? Number 2, Rolling Stones, already been mentioned. Number 3, Rush. Wow. So, we talked a little bit about Neil. Let's talk about humanism. Humanism. I have found it initially difficult to figure out how we think about different religions. Someone says this religion is this religion is that. How do I keep them straight in my mind? How do I understand which ones are different and which ones are similar? I found it very easy with just 4 questions, really just 2, to figure out exactly how a religion sees things and how it's going to motivate people to act on a wide range of issues. And this is the simple way to look at it. 1, how do I know what is a reliable piece of information? How do I filter what facts I'm going to treat as reliable and which ones I'm not? How do I get my information? Based on the information I get, what's real? What's actually real? Based on that, what matters? Obviously, if you don't think something's real, you don't think it matters. So you're going to base what matters on what's real. And then, of course, what matters is going to tell you how to live your life, because you're going to do things based on what you think matters. Okay, this comes down to really simple. What's real? What matters? Now, let's do a quick example so you can see how this works. It's really pretty straightforward. Let's try a conservative Muslim. Conservative Muslim, how do you know what's real? How do you know what facts to use? You know which facts to use by reading the Quran, listening to the Imam, things like that. Okay, based on those facts that you bring into your consideration, what's real? Obviously, the one God, Allah, heaven for Muslims, things like that. Okay, now if that's what's real, then what's important? What matters? Obviously, based on that, and what's important is pleasing this God, Allah, and making sure you go to heaven, not to hell. And then, of course, what are you going to do? How are you going to live your life based on what's real? You're going to do your prayer 5 times daily, go on Hajj, give the zakat, things like that. Okay, now, that'll allow us to look at humanism. If we look at humanism, how do I know what facts are reliable? In humanism, the facts are under a lot of scrutiny. I don't take facts in just because a lot of people say it, or because my dad said it, or because it makes me feel good. No, any fact, if it's going to be admitted as a fact, has to be based on evidence, have to have reasons and logic, has to pass critical thinking, or it's not going to be admitted as a likely fact. In humanism, based on that, what's real? Our earth around us, people, love, family, these things are real. there's no clear evidence for supernatural or an afterlife based on the evidence that we have from a humanistic view. So, based on that, then what's important? Our real lives now, my real life, your real life, all of our real lives, and those of people in the future. So then what do we do? How do we live our lives? From a humanistic standpoint, the way you live your life is you treasure every moment, you make your life count, and you also help build a just, healthy, and sustainable earth for future generations. So now, we've taken a look at Neil, we've taken a look at humanism. Now, let's move forward and look at all three together. We looked at the band also. Now, it would be wonderful to go through all the Rush lyrics and talk about how they support humanism and how humanism works into a lot of them. But we don't have 3 days. Rush has been churning out music for 35 years, and it would take an awful long time to do that. So I'm just going to try to hit some high points and look at these. Okay, number one, what evidence, what facts are we going to look at? From Roll of Bones, Jack, relax, get busy with the facts. No zodiacs or almanacs, or, in fact, maniacs, just the facts. Or, from probably the best-known Rush song, Tom Sawyer, no, his mind is not for rent to any god or government. Always hopeful yet discontent. Why discontent? Because he can see that things aren't perfect. Because he can see that this is not a perfect world and we're going to have to work hard to make things better. But always hopeful, we can make the world a better place. And he knows changes aren't permanent. Everything changes. The only thing permanent itself is change. Okay, based on that, we take all that evidence in, and where do we get humanism showing up in Rush lyrics from a standpoint of what's real? As we saw in the reading, it starts out with, you can choose a ready guide in some celestial voice, or you can choose to make your own decisions based on free will. Faith is cold as ice. Why are little ones born only to suffer for the want of immunity or a bowl of rice? Well, who would hold a price on the heads of the innocent children if there's some immortal power to control the dice? This is saying there's not. Things just happen, and the only way we can make things better is if we do things to make things better. And of course, we're only immortal for a limited time. While we're alive, we certainly feel immortal. But we know that's not the case. We know that, based on the evidence, everything dies, everything alive. And so, if that's the case, then we have to face death and not pretend it doesn't exist. Now, this is a little bit scary a lot of times, and I think that the reason for this is that as a society we have a cultural denial of the reality of death. And once we face death and recognize that it's real, it can change a lot of things, and it can change a lot of things for the better. For instance, if you think about it, death is a natural part of a healthy world. If we didn't have death, we would have bodies piled up 10 feet high over the whole, people stacked up everywhere, and you wouldn't have shoulder room. We have a finite world, and that means we have to have death. In fact, if you think about it, the real choice is between having no death and no children, as if you could have that, as if you could make that choice, versus having death and children. If you're going to have death, you can have children. If you're going to have children, you cannot get away from having death. Otherwise, there'd be no room for everyone over the years stacked up. So this is actually very positive, and what it points out is that every moment that we live is precious. And when you recognize that, it really changes your perspective getting up every morning. That you get this moment, this day, this activity of whatever you're doing to enjoy. Because if I had 14 billion pairs of shoes, I wouldn't care very much about a pair of shoes. If I had 14 billion seconds, I wouldn't care very much about seconds. But I don't. I know I don't. And that's why every moment is something to savor, and I want to make sure I spend them with family and friends, with people I care about, doing things that are important, and that's why I'm here this morning. If I didn't consider this important and valuable, I sure wouldn't be here. I'm glad to be here with everyone. In an interview, Neil has said, do yourself a favor, don't ever say to me everything happens for a reason. Again, he's emphasizing that there's not some grand plan where we don't have our own free will. There's what happens here on earth that's good is because people work to make it good. Or we were lucky, but not because something did it. And this actually comes in very helpful when something really bad happens, because when something really bad happens and someone's child dies, you don't say, oh, well, it's okay because this is happening for a reason. No, this is bad, it's a bad thing, and I'm going to stand by you and comfort you while you're mourning because I recognize that this is a bad thing. And the wonder and awe in our universe is the entire song, Mystic Rhythms, is wonderful, but a few pieces of it here. Mystic Rhythms under northern lights or the African sun. Primitive things stir the hearts of everyone. We feel the wonder and the joy when we see this incredible universe that we live in. Mystic Rhythms under city lights or a canopy of stars. We feel the powers. We feel that pull with us. And it would be a horribly impoverished life to never look around and recognize how wonderful this world is that we live in, at least many aspects of it. This is a powerful reason for us to all wonder more. Okay, based on what's real, what's important, and how do we live based on what's important? When we look at that in Rush lyrics, kids' car songs come up. Let me explain what I'm talking about here. A long time ago, when my kids were young, I made a mixtape on an actual cassette tape and put together a bunch of good songs and would have that playing in the car when I'm driving the kids around so that I can help introduce them to good music, help introduce them to good values, and help be a parent even when I have to be driving or something like that. So I would play this song all the time, and not just a song, but a 90-minute mixtape, right? One of the songs we had on there was Countdown by Rush from the Signals album, and this is an example of where Neil celebrates the wonders of science and our universe. This song is about a space shuttle launch. So it starts, lit up with anticipation, we arrive at the launching site. The sky is still dark, nearing dawn on the Florida coastline. Circling choppers slash the night with roving searchlight beams. This magic day when super science mingles with the bright stuff of dreams. Now, one thing that the lyrics, when you pull them up online, usually don't show you, is that in the background, a countdown starts. 10, 9, 8, 7. And I would tell the kids, oh my gosh, the rocket, we gotta get ready. The countdown, 6, 5, 4. And the kids would, I'd ask one of them to start the engines, I'd start one of them to tell, get the computers going, and we'd get all excited. And then we count down to 1, we get to the launch. The earth beneath us starts to tremble with the spreading of a low-cast cloud. A thunderous roar shakes the air like the whole world exploding. A scorching blast of blazing fire as it slowly leaves the ground and tears away with a mighty sound. Then I asked the kids, where do you want to go? And they would say, we want to go to Jupiter, we want to go to Alpha Centauri. And I would drive and shake the car a little bit, and we'd do this. It was so much fun. The kids loved it. They learned some of this joy and wonder. They had a great time doing it. And probably the neatest thing was unanticipated. I did not expect this, but one thing that made it a lot of fun was on a 90-minute mixtape. You forget what's coming up next. And we're driving to Kmart or something like that, and all of a sudden, kids, oh my gosh, the rocket song, oh my gosh, the rocket song. All right, you guys, where are we going to go? And out of nowhere, you have to, okay, right, now we're going to do this. It was so much fun. One of the things for humanism is to better ourselves. Be the best you can be. In an interview, Neil says, I'm learning all the time. I'm evolving all the time as a human being. I'm getting better, I hope, in all the important ways. It's a reminder for us all to live better. Now, we can be sad that a few weeks ago Neil died. But like I said, that's a foregone conclusion. Neil was alive, and anything alive is going to die. We can instead be very happy, that I'm very happy, that we, everyone here in this room, had the unbelievable luck to be able to be alive when Neil Peart was alive. We've had 2 million years of human history, and you get to be alive when Neil Peart is alive and kicking out songs? Wow! What a fabulous stroke of luck, if there were such a thing. Now, some scary, scary math. Millions, hundreds of millions of audio streams of Rush music every year. 40 million albums sold. Constant radio airplay of their main songs and many others. Has anyone had a greater impact for humanism in our lifetimes? I'm not sure. Carl Sagan? Maybe. Neil deGrasse Tyson, another Neil? Maybe. Bill Nye? And the amazing thing is, if you think about it, almost no one has heard Neil talk. Sure, you see it a couple times in interviews, maybe, but how many of us check out those interviews? Not the masses of people who are listening to this. He has had that impact, and almost no one has heard his voice. Wow. Because, of course, he's not the lead singer. Thank you, Neil, for all that you've done. And the important thing about this slide, about that thank you for Neil, is this, comma. Neil knows that what he did was standing on the shoulders of giants to help everyone see the wonder and glory of this world while making a better world for everyone and affirming the right of everyone, every human being, to honor their life and enjoy it. He did that not because these are ideas that he just came up with, but because plenty of other people laid that groundwork. He didn't make these scientific discoveries. He didn't postulate that basic approach of humanism first. That's quite old. And so what that means is he picked up the work from other people, just as we can pick up that work from him now. Thank you, Neil. We will do what we can. And he urges us to do that. How? In his lyrics. Courageous convictions will drag the dream into existence. In an interview, he pointed out, for a person of my sensibilities, you're only left with the Democratic Party. Now, regardless of the specific partisan point there, and that could change over time, the point is that we need to be involved in our world, and if we're involved in our world, that means we're involved in politics. And if the future, this is from one of his more recent albums, if the future is looking dark, we are the ones that have to shine. If there's no one in control, we're the ones who draw the line. Though we live in trying times, we are the ones who have to try. Let's help often for everyone, including our future world. Any questions? Neil was known both in his band and drumming circles as the professor, I'm sure because of these lyrics. Thoughts or questions?
Wasn't he an amazingly intelligent individual that read
Yeah.
way beyond most?
Yeah, he was. He was very well read. Mm-hmm.
Did he go on to college, or did he?
Mm-hmm. I do not think he had a college degree. I'd have to check the data on that, but I don't think so.
Okay, he read books that were
He
way
did.
beyond.
All kinds of stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
he read all kinds of stuff. In fact, all kinds of different genres, not just science stuff. He had a lot of very good science-related songs, as we saw with Countdown. But he also read a lot about social stuff, a lot of history stuff. He's got a bunch of stuff about that refers to the Holocaust or World War II. He's got several good songs that refer to important things in history that change the way we live our lives. And very well read. Any other thoughts? I wish I could just play more Rush music, but but I don't want to take too much time. All right.